The police station buzzed with amusement as a scruffy, disheveled boy stood in the corner, seemingly out of place. His ragged clothes and unkempt hair made him an easy target for jokes. The officers chuckled, dismissing him as another beggar, but then they discovered a startling truth about his family. When they heard the boy's whisper, they were too stunned to speak. When the kid revealed his father's identity, the officers' chuckles turned into shocked whispers. "Is that true? Or is he lying?" someone asked. Confusion spread around the station, and everyone stood frozen in place until Officer Nate stormed into the room, shouting, "Well, what are you waiting for? Get to work, now." He immediately approached the boy and crouched down next to him. "I'm sorry about that, buddy. Now, let me call your dad. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding," he comforted the little boy, who was in tears, trembling with emotion. Nate dialed the chief's number, feeling a knot in his stomach. He remembered seeing baby photos of Howard's son, but hadn't expected to meet him like this. Little did he know that the kid would lead him to the biggest shock of his career. As the phone rang, the boy whispered through tears, "Please, find him." Officer Nate tried to comfort him, promising that everything would be all right. But he couldn't hide his concern when the chief didn't answer. This was out of character for him, and Nate began to wonder if something had gone wrong. But what had happened? Why did this boy appear homeless? And where was his father, Chief Howard's? Officer Nate decided not to worry yet. He was sure that there had to be a perfectly logical explanation for all of this. He decided he'd try calling the chief again later, but first he needed to get this boy to calm down a bit. The kid seemed really upset, and he was also really dirty for some reason. "Come on, let's get you cleaned up," he said, as he stretched out his hand, patiently waiting for the boy to take it. "I'm hungry," the boy said, as they made their way to the bathroom. Officer Nate got him a chocolate bar from a vending machine at the station. Then he gently washed the boy's face and arms and got him dressed up using clothes that were kept at the police station for emergencies. The boy had come to the station only wearing his pajamas, and he looked cold. "Now, let's talk to your dad," Nate finally said. The officer led the boy into his office, and he leaned against his desk as he called Chief Howard again. "Come on, pick up already," he thought to himself, but this call, too, remained unanswered. He instructed one of his colleagues, Officer Ethan, to go to Chief Howard's house and see what was going on while he prepared to ask the kid some questions. He decided to start with an easy one and asked, "What's your name?" With another quiet whisper, the boy replied, "Josh." Officer Nate thought to himself, "Of course, I should have remembered." But he did his best not to show any concern on his face, and only gave the boy a kind smile. "All right, Josh. Now, can you tell me, when's the last time you saw your dad?" The boy's eyes immediately welled up with tears again. "I don't know," he replied, a tear rolling down his cheek, before asking for some more food. "I'm still hungry." Officer Nate began to question what on earth was happening. Chief Howard's had called in sick for a few days, but the boy's condition made Nate suspect that something was wrong. Then his phone rang. It was his colleague who had gone to Chief Howard's house, and he had bad news. "Nate, it's crazy. The house. It's an absolute mess," Ethan explained. "There's no trace of Howard's anywhere. From what I can see, it looks like he left in a hurry. But I don't get it. Why would he leave Josh behind?" The officer went on. Officer Nate turned pale upon hearing this, and he turned away from Josh, not wanting the boy to see the shock on his face. He took a deep breath and thought of what to do. "Thanks, Ethan. We need to track him down ASAP." Officer Nate immediately ordered a search for Chief Howard's, and he told Josh, "I'm really sorry about this, kid, but I'm going to need to ask you a few more questions. It might help us find your dad." The boy nodded, but before starting the interview, Nate ordered him a pizza. Nate watched the clock, anxious. He turned to Josh, trying to keep his voice calm. "So, when was the last time you saw your dad?" he asked. Josh bit into the pizza slice Nate had ordered, pausing before answering. "A few days ago," he murmured between bites. "He left for work and didn't come back." Nate's heart sank. He scribbled down notes, the situation growing more confusing by the minute. "We'll figure this out," Nate promised. Nate leaned closer, pushing aside his growing worry. "Can you tell me more about when your dad left?" he asked. Josh swallowed hard, glancing at his shoes. "He said he had a big case," the boy replied, "and he'd be home late, but he never came back." Nate's mind raced. "A big case?" he echoed. "Did he mention anything else?" Josh shook his head, eyes welling up. "No, just that. I waited, but he didn't come." Nate's expression softened. "You've been alone all this time?" he asked gently. Josh nodded, eyes cast down. "Yeah, I didn't know what to do," he admitted. "I found some snacks in the pantry, but it wasn't much." Nate felt a pang of sympathy. "Why didn't you call us sooner?" he asked. Josh shrugged, wiping away a tear. "I was scared," he whispered. "I thought he'd come back, but he didn't." Nate squeezed his shoulder reassuringly. Josh took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "I came here because I thought you'd know where he is," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Dad always said if I needed help, I should go to the station." Nate's heart ached for the boy. "You did the right thing, Josh," he assured him. "We're going to find your dad, okay?" Josh nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Okay," he whispered back, trusting Nate. Nate knelt down, meeting Josh's eyes. "Listen, buddy, I promise we'll do everything we can to find your dad," he said firmly. "You're not alone in this." Josh nodded, clutching his pizza slice like a lifeline. "Thanks," he murmured. Nate straightened up, determination hardening his resolve. "We're on it," he said, giving Josh a reassuring smile. Inside, though, Nate's mind raced with questions and a growing sense of urgency. Time was ticking, and they had to act fast. Officer Nate paced his office, trying to piece together the puzzle. Just then, Officer Ethan returned, holding a bank statement. "Nate, you need to see this," Ethan said, handing over the paper. Nate scanned it quickly, eyes widening. "Chief Howard's withdrew a huge sum of money a few days ago," Ethan explained. "It's not like him to do that without a reason." Nate nodded, deep in thought. "We need to find out where that money went," he decided. Nate ordered Ethan to dig deeper into Chief Howard's financial records. "We need to know if there's any pattern," Nate said. Ethan nodded and left, determination on his face. Nate turned back to Josh, who was nibbling on another slice of pizza. "Hang in there, kid," he said softly. Josh gave a small, brave nod. "We'll find him," Nate promised again, feeling the weight of responsibility grow heavier with each passing moment. Hours passed as Nate and his team worked tirelessly, following every lead. "Anything?" Nate asked, his voice tense. Ethan shook his head. "Not yet, but we're getting closer. There's a transaction that looks suspicious." Nate's eyes narrowed. "Keep at it," he urged. The pressure was mounting, but Nate refused to give up. He glanced at Josh, who was now dozing off on a chair. "We're doing everything we can," he whispered. Just as dawn began to break, Ethan burst into Nate's office, excitement in his eyes. "I found something," he exclaimed. Nate's heart leaped. "What is it?" he asked eagerly. "There's a transfer to an unknown account. It happened right after the withdrawal," Ethan explained. Nate's mind raced. "This could be it," he muttered. He turned to Josh, gently waking him. "We might have a lead," he said. "We're going to find your dad, I promise." With renewed determination, Nate and his team prepared to follow the new lead. "Let's move," Nate ordered. He gave Josh a reassuring smile. "We're getting closer," he said. Josh nodded, clutching Nate's hand tightly. "Stay strong, Josh," Nate encouraged. As they headed out, Nate couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of a major breakthrough. The search was far from over, but they were closer than ever to finding Chief Howard's. Nate sent officers to canvass Chief Howard's neighborhood. "Ask everyone if they've seen anything strange lately," he instructed. Officers knocked on doors, questioned neighbors, and took notes. "Did you notice any unusual activity?" one officer asked an elderly woman. "No, nothing out of the ordinary," she replied. The officers combed through the area, hoping for a lead. Nate stayed behind, coordinating the efforts and keeping a watchful eye on Josh, who was now fully awake. Despite their thorough search, the officers returned empty-handed. "We didn't find anything, Nate," Ethan reported, frustration evident in his voice. "No one saw or heard anything unusual." Nate sighed, rubbing his temples. "Keep looking," he said, trying to mask his growing concern. The lack of clues was unsettling. "We're missing something," he muttered to himself. Meanwhile, Josh sat quietly, sensing the tension in the room. Nate gave him a reassuring nod, though his worry deepened. Realizing the urgency, Nate decided it was best for Josh to stay somewhere safe. He contacted Josh's mother, Chief Howard's ex-wife. "He'll be safe with her," Nate told Josh. The boy nodded, understanding. They drove to her house and Nate explained the situation. "Please keep him safe," he urged. She hugged Josh tightly. "I will," she promised. As Nate left, he felt a mix of relief and determination. He had to find Chief Howard's, no matter what. With Josh safe, Nate and his team intensified their search efforts. "We're not giving up," Nate declared. They pored over records, checked surveillance footage, and followed up on every lead. "We need to find that money," Nate insisted. The team worked around the clock, their determination unwavering. The pressure was immense, but so was their resolve. Every clue, no matter how small, was pursued with relentless dedication. Nate knew time was against them, but they pressed on. Days passed without any significant progress. The officers grew increasingly frustrated, their efforts seemingly in vain. "We're running out of time," Ethan said, his voice heavy with worry. Nate nodded, feeling the weight of each passing hour. "We can't give up," he replied firmly. Despite the setbacks, their determination remained strong. They continued their relentless search, driven by the hope of finding Chief Howard's and bringing him home safely. The clock kept ticking, but so did their resolve. Days passed, and frustration gnawed at the officers. Each hour without progress weighed heavily on their spirits. "We need a break. Anything," Ethan said, running a hand through his hair. Nate nodded, feeling the pressure. "We'll find something," he assured his team, though doubt lingered in his mind. The clock continued to tick, each minute a reminder of their growing desperation. But giving up was not an option. They had to keep pushing forward. Nate gathered his team around a table cluttered with papers. "Let's dig into his phone records," he suggested, eyes sharp with determination. They combed through logs, searching for anything that might stand out. "Any unusual numbers?" Nate asked, scanning the pages. "Not so far," Ethan replied. The team worked tirelessly, tracing each call, hoping for a lead. The silence in the room was heavy, each officer lost in concentration, driven by the need to find answers. Despite their efforts, the phone records yielded no suspicious calls or unusual purchases. "It's like he vanished into thin air," Ethan muttered. frustration evident in his voice. Nate frowned, tapping his pen against the table. "Keep looking," he urged. They reviewed every detail, but nothing seemed out of place. The lack of clues was maddening. "We're missing something," Nate said, more to himself than anyone else. The search continued, but their patience was wearing thin. The team gathered again, puzzled by the lack of clues. "This doesn't make sense," one officer said, shaking his head. Nate agreed, the mystery deepening with each dead end. "We need to think outside the box," he suggested. They brainstormed, trying to find a new angle. The absence of evidence made Howard's disappearance even more baffling. "He didn't just vanish," Nate insisted. "There has to be something we're not seeing." The determination in his voice sparked a renewed effort. Despite the mounting challenges, Nate refused to let doubt creep in. "We're going to solve this," he told his team, his voice steady and confident. He spent long hours at his desk, reviewing every detail again and again. "We can't miss anything," he reminded himself. Nate's determination was unwavering. He knew they were close to a breakthrough. "We'll find him," he whispered, a promise to himself and to Josh. The case was far from over. Nate's instincts nudged him toward Chief Howard's recent cases. "There has to be a connection," he told Ethan. They sifted through files, focusing on high-profile cases. "Look for anything unusual," Nate instructed. Hours of searching revealed a promising lead. "Here's something," Ethan said, handing Nate a folder. It was a high-profile case involving a dangerous criminal. Nate's eyes narrowed. "This could be it," he murmured, feeling a glimmer of hope. They needed to dig deeper. Nate and Ethan read through the details of the high-profile case. "Howard was working on this just before he disappeared," Ethan noted. The case involved a notorious criminal with a long history of eluding law enforcement. "This guy's dangerous," Nate said, frowning. The criminal's reputation for slipping through the cracks made him a formidable foe. If Howard was onto something big, it could explain a lot, Nate mused. They had to keep following the trail. The more they read, the clearer the picture became. The criminal, known for his cunning, had evaded capture for years. "No wonder Howard was so focused on this," Ethan remarked. Nate nodded. "He's not someone you'd want to face alone," he said. The criminal's history of outsmarting authorities made him a serious threat. "We need to find out what Howard knew," Nate said, determination in his voice. "This guy could be the key to everything." Nate and Ethan scoured Howard's office, searching for any overlooked clues. "Check everywhere," Nate instructed. In a desk drawer, they found a notebook filled with scribbled notes. "Here's something," Ethan said, pointing to a specific entry. It mentioned a meeting place and time. Nate's heart quickened. This could be where Howard went, he speculated. The notes suggested a clandestine meeting related to the case. "We need to follow this lead," Nate said, feeling a surge of urgency. Nate studied the notes carefully. "It looks like Howard might have gone to confront the criminal alone," he theorized. Ethan looked concerned. "That's risky," he commented. Nate nodded, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "We have to find him," Nate said, determination hardening his resolve. If Howard went alone, he could be in serious danger. They prepared to investigate the location mentioned in the notes, hoping it would lead them to Howard and some answers. Nate and his team decided to check out the location mentioned in Howard's notes. "This could be it," Nate said as they geared up. The address led them to a desolate part of town. "Stay sharp," he warned, the sense of urgency clear in his voice. They drove in silence, each officer mentally preparing for what they might find. As they approached, the area grew more ominous, heightening their anxiety about Howard's fate. The team arrived at a desolate warehouse district, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. "This place gives me the creeps," Ethan muttered, Nate nodded, scanning the area. "Let's move," he ordered, leading the way. They split into smaller groups, flashlights cutting through the dimness. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret, every sound an unseen threat. The tension was palpable as they began their search, determined to find any trace of Chief Howard's. The officers searched each building meticulously, their footsteps echoing in the empty spaces. "Check everything," Nate instructed. They combed through abandoned offices, dusty storage rooms, and neglected hallways. "Anything?" Ethan asked. Nate shook his head, frustration mounting. "Keep looking," he urged. The team pressed on, opening every door, inspecting every corner. The minutes felt like hours as they scoured the district, driven by the hope of finding a clue, any clue, that could lead them to Howard's. In one of the buildings, they stumbled upon a hidden office, its door slightly ajar. "In here," Nate called softly. The room was cluttered with scattered papers and old furniture. On the desk, a photo caught Nate's eye. "Look at this," he said, holding it up. The photo showed Howard's with a known criminal. "This confirms it," Ethan said grimly. They searched the room for more clues, the discovery heightening their fears about what might have happened. The discovery heightened their fears about Howard's fate and confirmed the danger he faced. "We're on the right track, but time's running out," Nate said, urgency in his voice. The scattered papers hinted at a larger conspiracy, making the situation even more dire. "We need to report this," Ethan suggested. Nate nodded. "We have to move fast," he agreed. The photo and documents painted a grim picture, but they also provided a crucial lead in their desperate search. Nate reported the discovery to his superiors, confirming Chief Howard's was in grave danger. "We found evidence that links Howard's to a notorious criminal," Nate explained, holding up the photo. The captain's face turned grim. "This changes everything," he said. Orders were quickly given to intensify the search. "We need all hands on deck," Nate insisted. The urgency of the situation sank in, and everyone knew the clock was ticking. They had to act fast. The team coordinated with neighboring precincts to intensify their search efforts. "We need more manpower," Nate urged during a briefing. Maps were spread out, and officers from different precincts collaborated, sharing information and strategies. "We're covering every possible lead," Ethan said, his determination evident. The combined effort brought a renewed sense of hope. "We're getting closer," Nate encouraged. The collaborative spirit was strong, and the collective focus was clear. Despite their efforts, Nate felt they were missing a vital clue that could unlock the mystery. "Something's not adding up," he muttered to Ethan. They reviewed the evidence again, hoping to spot what they had overlooked. "We're so close," Ethan said, frustration evident. Nate nodded, eyes scanning the notes and photos. "There's a piece we're missing," he insisted. The team's determination didn't waver, but the sense of an elusive answer gnawed at Nate's resolve. Nate's determination grew, driving him to find Howard and bring him home safely. "We can't let him down," he told his team. Long hours and sleepless nights became the norm as they pushed harder. "Every minute counts," Nate reminded them. The pressure was intense, but so was their commitment. "We're not giving up," he vowed. Nate's resolve inspired his team, their efforts redoubled by the promise to leave no stone unturned. The search continued, unwavering. Nate vowed not to rest until the chief was found, spurring his team into action. "We have to find him," he declared. The officers, motivated by Nate's relentless drive, intensified their search. "We're doing this for Howard's," Ethan said, echoing the sentiment. The commitment to their mission was palpable. "Let's move," Nate urged. The renewed energy and focus propelled them forward. As they pressed on, a sense of imminent breakthrough hung in the air. A sudden call from an informant provided a critical breakthrough for the officers. Nate grabbed the phone, listening intently. "I've seen the guy from the photo," the informant whispered. "He's been spotted in the city's underground circuits." Nate's heart raced. "Where exactly?" he asked urgently. The informant gave detailed information. "Thank you," Nate said, hanging up. He turned to his team, eyes gleaming with hope. "We've got a lead," he announced. "Let's move quickly." The informant had seen the criminal from the photo in the city's underground circuits. "He's been laying low, but he's definitely there," the informant had said. Nate relayed the information to his team. "This is our chance," he said, determination in his voice. The underground circuits were notorious for hiding criminals. "We need to plan this carefully," Nate added. The team began strategizing, every detail scrutinized. They knew this could be their break. Nate and his team devised a plan to corner the criminal and uncover Howard's location. "We'll need to cover all exits," Ethan suggested. Nate nodded. "We can't let him slip through our fingers," he agreed. They mapped out the area, assigning roles and positions. "Everyone knows what to do?" Nate asked, looking around. Affirmative nods met his gaze. "Let's get this right," he said. The plan was set, and the team was ready to execute it flawlessly. The tension was palpable as the officers prepared, each aware of the stakes involved. Nate could feel the weight of the mission pressing on his shoulders. "Stay focused," he reminded them. The quiet hum of last-minute preparations filled the room. "We've got one shot at this," Ethan said, checking his gear. Nate's heart pounded with anticipation. "We're bringing him home," he said firmly. The gravity of the moment hung in the air, unspoken but deeply felt. With renewed hope, the team moved swiftly, determined to solve the case. "Let's go," Nate commanded, leading the way. They moved with purpose, every step measured and deliberate. The city's underground circuits awaited, a labyrinth of potential dangers. "Stay sharp," Nate reminded his team. The adrenaline was palpable as they navigated through the narrow alleys. Each officer was laser-focused, driven by the desire to find Chief Howard's. The sense of imminent breakthrough fueled their resolve. The operation commenced, and Nate led his team into the criminal's suspected hideout. The warehouse loomed ahead, its shadow casting an eerie feeling over the team. "Stay close and stay quiet," Nate whispered. The officers moved with practiced precision, their training kicking in. Nate's heart raced as they approached the entrance. "This is it," he thought, adrenaline pumping through his veins. They positioned themselves around the building, ready to breach. "On my signal," Nate instructed. The silence was broken only by the sound of their cautious footsteps approaching. Each step echoed in the stillness, amplifying the tension. Nate signaled for the team to stop and listen. The faint sound of voices reached their ears. "We're close," Nate mouthed, his eyes scanning the area. The team nodded in understanding, their movements synchronized. The air was thick with anticipation as they edged closer to the source of the voices, every sense heightened. Hearing voices confirmed they were in the right place, fueling their adrenaline. "This is it," Nate thought, signaling his team to proceed with caution. The murmurs grew clearer as they advanced, their presence undetected. Nate's pulse quickened, knowing they were on the verge of a breakthrough. He held up his hand, indicating for the team to halt. "We're ready," he whispered. The voices on the other side of the door were unmistakable, and their target was close. Nate's team prepared to confront the criminal and hopefully rescue Chief Howard's. "Positions," Nate ordered, his voice low but firm. The officers took their places, weapons drawn, ready for action. The plan was clear, and each member knew their role. "On 3, Nate counted, adrenaline surging through his veins. 1, 2, 3, he mouthed, and the team moved in unison. The time for stealth was over. Now was the moment for decisive action and bravery. The officers braced themselves for the confrontation, ready to bring Howard home. The door burst open, and they flooded into the room, weapons raised. "Police! Don't move!" Nate shouted, his voice echoing through the space. The scene before them was chaotic, but Nate's focus was unwavering. His eyes scanned for Chief Howard's, hoping against hope to see him safe. The criminal's shocked expression told Nate they had the element of surprise. "Secure the area," he commanded. The police quietly searched the hideout, guided by the distant sounds of voices. Nate signaled for silence as they moved through the dimly lit corridors. Every step was careful, every movement deliberate. "This way," Nate whispered, pointing toward the source of the noise. The team split up, covering more ground, but remaining close enough to support each other. The voices grew louder, and Nate's heart pounded with anticipation. They were close, and they knew it. They followed the noise, leading them to the criminal they had been searching for. The muffled conversation became clearer, confirming their target's location. Nate's team moved with precision, edging closer to a door slightly ajar. Peering inside, they saw the criminal, unaware of their presence. Nate nodded to his team, signaling that it was time. "On my mark," he mouthed. The officers prepared themselves, ready to confront the man who had eluded them for so long. After a brief struggle, the officers arrested the notorious criminal. Bursting through the door, they caught him by surprise. "Hands up!" Nate shouted. The criminal tried to resist, but the officers overpowered him quickly. "We've got him," Ethan confirmed, securing the cuffs. Nate felt a surge of relief, but knew their job wasn't done. "Where's Chief Howard's?" he demanded. The criminal's silence was unsettling. Despite the arrest, a critical piece of the puzzle was still missing. Despite the arrest, they still didn't know where Chief Howard's was located. Nate's frustration grew. "Search the place again," he ordered. The team fanned out, checking every room and hidden corner. The criminal's smirk did little to ease their worry. "We're not leaving without Howard's," Nate insisted. The urgency was palpable as they combed through the hideout. Time was running out, and they needed answers. The tension in the air was thick, but they pressed on. The team discovered that Howard had tried to negotiate with the criminal, but the deal had gone wrong. Papers strewn across a table hinted at a desperate attempt to reach an agreement. "Looks like he tried to bargain," Ethan said, holding up a crumpled note. Nate scanned the documents, piecing together the events. "He must have thought he could resolve this peacefully," Nate muttered. The failed negotiation explained some of the chaos, but they still needed to find Howard's. The officers found Chief Howard's bound and bruised but alive in the hideout. "Over here," Ethan called. Nate rushed over, relief flooding his system. "Chief, can you hear me?" Nate asked, cutting the ropes. Howard's nodded weakly, his face showing signs of the ordeal he endured. "We've got you, sir," Nate assured him, helping him to his feet. Despite his injuries, Howard managed a grateful smile. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. Relief washed over the precinct as they finally brought their leader home safely. The officers cheered as Howard's was escorted into the station, supported by Nate and Ethan. "Welcome back, Chief," someone called out. Howard's, though weary and battered, smiled at the familiar faces. "Good to be back," he said hoarsely. The atmosphere was electric with relief and joy. Nate felt a weight lift off his shoulders, knowing their relentless effort had paid off. Chief Howard's explained his secretive plans and encounter with the criminal. Sitting in the briefing room, Howard's recounted the events. "I thought I could negotiate," he admitted, wincing from his injuries. "But things went south quickly." He detailed the criminal's demands and his attempt to gather intel. "I didn't want to put anyone else in danger." Howards explained. Nate listened intently, understanding the chief's motives. The room was silent, everyone absorbing the gravity of the situation. Grateful for his team's relentless determination, he thanked Nate personally. "You saved my life," Howard said, gripping Nate's hand firmly. "I knew you'd never give up." Nate felt a surge of pride and humility. "Just doing my job, Chief," he replied. Howard shook his head. "You went above and beyond," he insisted. The sincerity in his eyes spoke volumes. Nate nodded, feeling the bond of mutual respect and gratitude solidify between them. Howard recognized Nate's pivotal role in solving the mystery and saving his life. "This man's determination brought me home," Howard told the assembled officers. He never wavered, even when things seemed hopeless. Nate felt the eyes of his colleagues on him, a mixture of admiration and pride. "Thank you, Nate," Howard continued. "Your leadership and resolve made all the difference." Nate nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. The mission was over, but the impact was lasting. Back at the station, Josh, once mocked, became the center of admiration and respect. The officers who had laughed at him now looked at him with newfound respect. "Hey, Josh, you're a tough kid," one officer said, ruffling his hair. Josh smiled shyly, feeling the warmth of their acceptance. He had come to the station seeking help and found a family. The transformation in how they viewed him was a testament to his bravery. The officers no longer saw Josh as a laughingstock, but as the brave son of a chief. "Your dad's a hero, and so are you," Nate told him. Josh's eyes sparkled with pride. The officers shared stories of their own families, making Josh feel part of the team. "You stood strong when it mattered most," Ethan added. Josh beamed, his confidence growing. The respect and admiration from the officers filled him with a sense of belonging. Josh beamed with pride as his father returned, their bond stronger than ever. "Dad!" he shouted, running into Howard's arms. Howard's hugged him tightly, tears in his eyes. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. Josh held on to him, feeling safe and loved. The ordeal had tested their strength, but it had also brought them closer. "We'll always be there for each other," Howard's promised. The bond between father and son was unbreakable, forged in the fire of their ordeal. The precinct united as a family in blue, supporting Josh and Howard. "We're here for you both," Nate said during a small gathering. The officers cheered, celebrating their victory and unity. Josh looked around, feeling the warmth of their camaraderie. "You're one of us now," Ethan said, handing Josh a small police badge pin. The room erupted in applause. The sense of family and support was overwhelming, binding them together stronger than ever. You like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.